5 panelists. We got 2 attendees. Hello, 3.
Nice.
We should have jumped up to 5 now. There are 25 who registered, so should have a good number joining us today.
Yeah.
They're flying in.
Yeah. Attendees who are here right now, can you write in the chat function, can you see all of us? Can you see the gallery view? Or can you just see whoever's speaking? Awesome.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Let's wait another minute or so to give more people time, and then we can jump into it.
You can stare at our homes and learn about us intimately while we wait.
Yeah, we were just commenting on Adam's sailboat. Garrett's hat.
Very nice.
Adam, do you know if a few of your players are going to tune in today?
That's what I'm checking right now. I see Aaron in here. And I think that's all I see right now, but I am checking right now. I'm going to be checking throughout the whole thing, seeing if my guys are in here.
What age group you have? 16?
Yeah, I see you 17s.
17.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, you guys would be a little young, but.
Yeah, they're probably drawing pictures anyways.
Yeah, they just draw you the whole time.
They're so funny.
G, do you have any goalkeepers who are in a age range where they're starting to think about college?
Yeah, I have a few. I think Brandon was thinking about playing. I don't know about Sarah. She's got a few more years.
Yeah. All right. Well, I see us evening out here in terms of attendees joining. Hopefully more start to roll in, but let's get going. Thank you for joining us in our BVU Boys College Soccer webinar. My name is Jen Larrick. I'm the Director of Coaching for the club, and I will moderate the webinar today. I'll ask questions, and you will learn from our awesome panelists. The goal is to run for about 75 minutes, about 7:15. We'll try to wrap up. And the goal is to get questions from you too. So I've got a list of predetermined questions that we're going to talk through, but this is to serve you. This is to answer your questions. So as you get questions throughout, please put them in the chat and we'll plug them in to the next question. We'll answer them right away. We really want to hear from you. I'll remind you throughout the session that we want to hear from you. And please don't be shy to jump on in there. Last but not least, this will be recorded. So if you have friends who want to watch it back later, or if there's a part that you really enjoyed, it will show up on our YouTube page later tonight. So to start with, we'll do introductions. So panelists, tell us your name, what BVU team you coach, where you played college soccer, or where you coach college soccer currently, what position you played, and give us an interesting fact about yourself as well. Let's go to Greg first. Go ahead.
Greg Holker. I'm currently the technical director in the club. I've been with BVU since its inception, and prior to that was with Burnsville. I coach the U11 boys team right now, which includes my son, which is pretty tricky. I played collegiately at Gustavus Adolphus College at St. Peter, Division III institution, and I played wherever I could play to be on the field. I played up front as a first year. I think I was a central midfield player, like a 10 as my sophomore year, and I played a little bit at right back too. And then I was back up front my junior year and back in the midfield my senior year. So it's kind of wherever the team needed me. Interesting fact about myself is I have 4 children that are doing everything they can not to come into this room right now, but at some point they might.
That will definitely be a fun surprise. Awesome. Dan, will you go next?
Yeah. So my name's Daniel Hedstrom. I've been with the club for 3 years now, 7th year overall coaching though. And I've been usually with the 11s and 12s. This year I have the U12 team at BVU. So I really enjoy that age group, but things are falling. Sorry. And then I played college soccer at 2 schools actually. So I played at Northern Michigan my freshman year, which is a D2 school, and then I transferred to Augsburg for the final 3 years and played there. I played center back for the majority of my career, unless we really needed some big, tall guy up top to go do some damage or run at players. So just be a menace up there. But I usually play as a center back. And then an interesting fact about me is half my family lives here, and then my other half of my family on my dad's side lives over across the pond in Sweden. So pretty international connected family.
Thanks, Dan. Super cool. I had the pleasure of watching Dan play college soccer, and it was definitely fun to watch him play up top every once in a while. Let's have Garrett go next, and then Adam, will you jump in after he's done?
Sure. Hey, I am Garrett Kalen. I am coaching the goalies at BVU. This is my 3rd year there. I also play with Dan. I played goalie, as you can imagine. Let's see. And an interesting fact, right? You want one of those? My dream is kind of to live in an Airstream trailer. So hopefully at some point I can find some time and do that.
If you're not sure what that is, you should look it up.
Mm-hmm.
See where Garrett wants to live. All right, Adam, take us home.
Hi, I'm Adam King. I'm the only non-Augsburg guy. So I went to Hamlin University where I played soccer there. I guess firstly, I coached the U17s. A lot of my kids are a little bit younger. We're on freshmen. But I've been coaching for the YMCA for like 3 years. And so this is actually my first 5 months with the club. So it's been pretty exciting. I am primarily a striker. So I just, try to make Greg's life as hard as I could for all 4 years. Same with Dan, So Dan's 6'5", I'm 5'5". He won a lot of those exchanges, but that's okay. But yeah, interesting fact about myself is that I actually finished out the last 2 years of high school in California. So I have a little bit different perspective on, soccer outside of just in Minnesota.
Thanks so much. So yeah, as you can tell, a lot of knowledge in the room, in the Zoom room, and I think it'll be fun to walk through these questions. We'll start with, how did you know you wanted to play college soccer? We see a lot of players who want to go to a big school but want to play college soccer, or want to study a specific major but want to play college soccer, and sometimes those things don't go together, and they have to sort of sort through how important is college soccer to them. So Dan, and then let's go to Garrett, and then end again with Adam. How did you know you wanted to play college soccer?
I think I just didn't want to stop playing. For me, it never really crossed my mind where I'm like, oh, I want to be done. I think it'd be really hard for me to give that up at such a young age, 18 after high school. And then another reason was my dad played college soccer, actually the MIAC back in like the 80s. So I think the stories that he's told me growing up, and then just hearing other collegiate stories, it's just kind of like, this is an opportunity that you don't get. And it's a percentage of players that make the jump from high school to college is very minuscule. And the players that last 4 years in college is even smaller. That was something that I wanted to challenge myself to do. And also at the same time said, you only get this opportunity once, so might as well, if I have the opportunity to take it, I should take it. So
Yeah, the opportunity was definitely there for me as well. Spent my whole life playing. I think most of us here have started playing since we were about 3 years old, maybe even younger. So I just kind of want to continue my talents into that, collegiate level. Another thing is, there's a lot of potential to learn through soccer. You get a handful of friends, you're working with a new team, and you're getting challenged every day. So for me, that was kind of one of the big pieces I wanted to continue into college.
For me, I kind of went back and forth for a while, and I really didn't decide till quite late that it was what I wanted to do. But I think the thing that mattered a lot to me was I had moved in the middle of high school, and I went to a school where I knew no one, and the only way I was able to find friends was through soccer. So I knew if I was going into college, you come in there, and I knew I was going to have like 20 friends. But, you do end up, creating just an absolutely crazy amount of relationships. But I think that's what really drove me to do college soccer.
Thanks, Adam. I love the perspective of sort of having to go back and forth to decide. And I love what G said about, you can learn a lot from it too. the D3 mindset is a lot of like sports are a part of the holistic education of a student athlete. Next, what are the most important steps a player can take if they want to play college soccer? So you've decided you do want to play. What are the steps? What are the things you should be doing right away? Should you get a recruiting service? Should you make a specific email? What's really important to have? And let's jump to Greg there.
It's probably better if I fill in the blanks. I didn't mention that I'm also the men's coach at Augsburg University, where I've been for 16 years. And prior to that, I was an assistant for 2 seasons at Gustavus with a few high school spots in between, Bloomington, Jefferson, and Holy Angels. So I've been around a bit and have seen this process through a lot of different lenses. And I would say that, to be proactive, if you really want to play, you need to be the one who initiates communication. I think too many players just kind of sit around and wait and think that it's going to come to me. I'm going to be picked up and someone's going to find me. And all that might happen in some arenas, depending on your quality, if you're not proactive in reaching out to different universities and colleges and their coaches, you're just limiting the opportunities that you might have, that you might be able to really embrace and succeed in. So I would encourage you to, reach out, send an email, be specific about that email. I know Jen's put together a really good piece for everyone that she'll share at the tail end of this. No need to discuss it really in depth now, but in regard to recruiting services, I just delete them. So as the coach at Augsburg, I delete every email that comes from the National College Recruiting, NSCA, or whatever all these things are. I just hit delete. It used to be a fax that would come into my mailbox. I'd throw it away. They're really irrelevant because they're impersonal and they don't show me any level of care. I want people who know about our program, and I want people who are invested in their own experience, not waiting for someone else to do it for them. So that's my 2 cents on those things.
Yeah. Adam, will you jump in next? I know you created some materials. You created a graphic. You created a highlight tape. Will you talk about that?
Yeah, so I was really, really fortunate to when I moved out to California, every coach I had for club was a college coach. And so they were on us at a really young age, like in 11th grade, to get on a lot of the recruiting process stuff. And so if you look right here, this is a part of one of the things I made, which is a graphic, including with my video, but it's just a really, really nice sticker that you can attach to any email you have, and a coach can click on that right away and just get a really good idea. So just name, GPA, position, or anything like that. And then for me, I was in California and I was contacting a coach who was in Minnesota who had no chance to ever see me play. And so whenever you're dealing with something where you're trying to go out of state, it's a really good idea to have a highlight reel. And so I think we ended up like having one of my teammates, make me a video, and we paid him, like we spent the extra mile. And if you look at the video, you can see there's some extra effects, but it's kind of like you can add as much stuff to your repertoire as possible. I can tell you that the most effective things are probably going to be emailing, like Greg will say, and then just being annoying with emailing. Just I've had coaches say that 2 emails a day isn't even that annoying. Like if you're trying to go like really, really high up, obviously you need to be just plastering things everywhere and just constantly getting your name out there.
If I got 2 a day, I'd be annoyed. So I would delete you, just so you know. So
Fair.
I think it's a good point, though, that being persistent is important. So you don't want to pester coaches, but if you send a personal email that shows about the program, about the school, and then you follow up, it does demonstrate a certain level of care, and I think would increase a coach's likelihood of responding. So next, what was the college soccer recruiting process like for you? Let's start with Dan, and then we'll jump to Garrett.
Yeah, so I guess mine was a little different. I mean, I'm from Duluth, Minnesota, where you only play hockey or shovel snow for 10 months of the year, and you basically do nothing else. So for me, I always had to travel places to get my name out like everyone else is talking about. So I as well had a graphic, and I tried to attend as many identification camps as I could in the Midwest or down south, initiate phone calls, connect with coaches that who know other coaches. But it was a lot of me reaching out and making myself attractive in the best way I could without being like over the top, annoying, finding the correct balance. So like nobody's going to come up to Duluth to watch a soccer game. So the videos were very important. And whenever I had a chance to play in the cities or Iowa or Wisconsin, I always made sure that I CC'd and the direct copy of people on the emails of the coaching staff, as many people on the staff as I could, grad assistants, assistant coach, head coach. So I got to like 3 or 4 different people, not just one, left emails and phone calls on there, my coach's phone calls. So if they didn't want to call me, they could call them. I just made it as easy and as accessible for the other coaches to reach me as I could, because I think Greg might say the same thing, that if he's got to go out of his way and find information on you, contact the information for you, that's probably not something you want to do. If you lay out all the information for them and they and you initiate contact with them, it makes their job a lot easier and probably more pleasant for them to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually my start at the athletic application. So online, most schools, I think in the MIAC, have the application for, any sport. You can say what sport you play. So obviously I just went in, said I wanted to play soccer. I got Holker's email, and then I was able to start a conversation with him. And through that, luckily I was in town. I was at Hill-Murray, so I sent Greg my schedule, and he was able to come to one of my games and watch me play. So I think that really helped. Also, I did the club showcases, but I can't say I made any connections with any coaches through that. So for me, it was just the email.
Thanks, Garrett. I think that's a great segue to the next topic of, Greg, when you're watching players, what are you looking for?
More than the soccer, I think really it starts when we get to the field. What are the interactions that this player has with his teammates, with the people who have come to watch the game, usually family members, and the care and attention to detail that the player takes in the warm-up period. Like, how committed is this person to really being a soccer player that can handle the stress that I'm going to eventually put you under if you play in our program, and so that you can rise and elevate your own personal level of play. So it's not just, can you play soccer? I think that's super easy for any of us to really see. But it's a lot more of the intangibles. How great of a teammate are you? Do you make the players around you better? Are you positive? Or are you critical of referees and critical of teammates and passing and assigning blame on in moments when you need to accept responsibility? I think I'm looking for a person who has a really high level of, personal character, who's grateful, who shows humility, but who's really hardworking and really cares about what they're doing. And so a lot of the recruiting process is identifying a soccer player by qualities. Again, it takes me 2 seconds. Then it's watching their interactions. Then it's getting to speak with them and getting to know them a little bit more. And that process takes some time. But you want to make sure that you have the right person for your program and for your culture. And each player that's on this, looking about which institution you want to go to, you want to make sure that you're going to the right culture and to the right people who you're going to get along with and are going to lead you in a way that you believe in. Not something that just appears sexy on paper. That's a common mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point that you want to look for a good fit for you and not just what looks good on paper. And one way that you can do that is by doing a campus visit where you meet the college coaching staff and you meet the current players. Dan, Garrett, Adam, when you went and visited campus, were you able to talk to players, and what kind of questions would you suggest our BVU boys ask current players when they're doing an on-campus recruiting visit? Let's start with Adam, since we've been ending with him lately. We'll go Adam, Garrett, Dan.
So when I went and visited, I got to do a really cool visit. I was, again, living in California, so I flew out for the weekend. And so I stayed in the dorms with the teammates, and I pretty much just spent, 2.5 days straight with the teammates, which obviously not everybody gets to do, but I think that a lot of these guys will tell you too, doing the overnights with the team and, getting there and hanging out all day and eating some, food together. It's it's really crucial. I got such a good idea for how the team operates, and just, people I think are cool, stuff like that. And I think that, your coaches will tell you that, well, at least they told me, the teammates are the people who sell it. So, you get out there and you're going to meet really, really nice people. And so that's how it went for me.
Yeah, I think one really important thing to do when you are visiting the school is have a meal with the guys. Ask your coach to set up a team meal, whether it's a lunch or a dinner. And that way you can just kind of get to know them on a personal level. As for questions, I mean, I think it's a good time to just challenge yourself to be vulnerable and, maybe bring up things that you're interested in, because, I bet, 50% of the time you're going to meet someone that has those same interests as you on the team. So, I mean, just getting to know them, sharing a meal with them, I think that can be really important when you're hanging out with the people on the team.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that whatever school or campus you visit, you can see yourself walk on that same campus and be in those same classrooms without the soccer aspect. Because if you're not at a pro or a university or college that you're not comfortable with outside of the soccer environment, then it might not be the best fit for you in the soccer environment. Because there's many moments in time when people are injured or suspended or maybe even kicked off a team, and they just realize this school is not my fit. So I think it's important to understand, and questions you can ask the players: what's the school life here? What's the environment like? What's the classroom setting like? You can kind of poke around and get to feel what the soccer team is like and what the environment is like through the coaching staff and their selling points, and through the players and what they like and what they do. But you can't really gauge like the university life or the classroom life unless you ask those questions, probe them, or actually sit in on a class. So I really think it's important to understand the other side of your college experience. You're not just there to play soccer. You're there to do both. And if you can't do one, you're not going to do the other one to the best of its ability. So I think it's important to understand both sides.
A word that Garrett used, I'm sorry, Adam, a word that Garrett used I think is really important, and that was vulnerable. Because a lot of times in these visits, you're going to get a biased coach selling their program and a player who comes in with preconceived biases about the program and about the institution. And if we're not able to be forward with each other and share that right away, like, look, I'm selling this to you. I get it. So you need to get a different lens, a different perspective from somebody who doesn't have a salesperson's pitch. Conversely, as a student athlete or prospective student athlete, you have to be honest and willing to share like what your real story is, because your story matters. And if you don't share your story and you just go in and you're like, I was all right, I was okay, you're not actually going to understand and gauge what really matters and becomes important to you as you move in the future. Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
No, one other thing is that, you can approach the coaches and be very like straightforward with them. So if you go and you say, I would like to attend a class, you can likely attend a class. When I visited, I sat down in Intro to Religion next to a teammate, and then 6 months later, I was enrolled in the class as a freshman. So you can go and you can sit down. The teacher will want to meet, the professors want to meet you, all that stuff. There's a surprise. You can have some control over, what happens when you come and visit. Coaches want to make the experience, pleasant for you, obviously.
Yeah, great point, Adam. I think I forgot to add at the beginning, I'm also an assistant college coach at Augsburg University on the women's side. But I'll just add that when recruits come into our office, I am really impressed when they have a lot of questions coming in, when they've been really thoughtful, they've done their homework on the front end, and they ask things like, hey, what does your preseason look like? What would I need to do over the summer to work out? Tell me more about the business department. Can I meet a professor? When they know coming in what they're looking for, I'm impressed. It doesn't feel annoying. It's not a bother. It's a really, really good sign to me. So my biggest advice is have questions, have very specific questions heading in, for sure. Greg, anything else to add there in terms of players gauging programs?
I don't think so. I think if you have additional questions that come to mind as people on this that are watching, you can shoot them and type it in the chat room, and we'll be able to address them a little bit more specifically that way.
Nice. So next we'll jump to what are the differences between Division I, Division II, and Division III? And I think that is certainly a way to gauge a program because the differences there could affect you, it could affect your playing experience, your financial experience. And let's start with Dan there, since you had experience at two schools in two different divisions.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, there was one way that I've heard the Division I, Division II, Division III being split up, and I think it's actually really relevant because of the way each program or each division maybe allocates time to being an athlete or a student. So they say at Division III, you're a student athlete, you're a student first, and then you're an athlete, and then at Division II, you're an athlete student. It's like kind of 50-50, but then at Division I, you're an athlete student, where a lot of your time is athletic. And I have a lot of friends who have played at that level, and I've seen coaches talk about that, how like, oh, it's a lot of athletic stuff here. So you kind of got to look at what you want. Like if you want to be fully invested in soccer for 24/7, 365, or if you want to have more of more time to do more academic sense. That's not the end all be all. It's not every program is that way, but if you look at kind of the gist of how each program is run, there's harder spring seasons across the divisions. And when I was at Division II at Northern, we had a spring season that went from January 17th until the end of April, 6 times a week with 3 spring games, 3 lifts a week, 3 or 4 training sessions a week, and then running on the weekends. So it was pretty tough. I still was able to still have time for school. We made them pretty quick. But there was a lot of in-season and off-season, including in the summer. When I come to Augsburg, and our spring season is a little bit less, starting about late February. Right? Yeah. And then until about the end of April or so, finals week. In that sense, so you get a little bit more of a break. But also, I'm going to say, like, there are Division III teams that could very well beat Division I teams, and there are Division II teams that could beat Division I teams. I think in soccer, there's a lot of parity across all divisions. It just kind of depends on what you want to be post-college. Like, if you want to be better prepared in a certain area, if you want to be better prepared as a soccer player, or go to a certain school for a certain program. But I just want to be very clear and say that you're going to – I mean, I have had teammates at Augsburg who could very well play Division I, no doubt. And I don't want you to think that, hey, I'm a Division III player, I'm not that good, or I'm a Division II player, I'm better than you. Like, divisions, in my opinion, don't really mean much because you can learn a lot more if you fit in at a program at a D3 level better than at a program at a D1 or D2 level.
Thanks, Dan. Greg, will you jump in there next and maybe add some specifics around scholarships and what finances look like at each level?
Yeah, fully funded Division I men's soccer program has 9.9 scholarships. So that in the roster size is usually between 25 and 28 athletes. So if you guys out there doing the math, thinking, I'm investing in my youth soccer experience because it's going to get me a college scholarship, you're better off investing in a Roth IRA or some other fund, 423B or something where you can pull that money out and use it differently. Because 9.9, if I'm allocating that money as a thoughtful steward of that resource, 2 fulls probably, and they're going to international students who are better than all of you. And then I'm taking 7 of them and splitting them up among, maybe 15 to 18 guys. And then 5 or 6 of you are walk-ons who, if you get through the lineup in 2 years, maybe you'll get some books paid for. But I'm not going to pay for anybody beyond 14 or 15, really. That's just the reality. So I think the rumor, if you will, that there's scholarship money everywhere, it's just not the case. And not all programs are fully funded either. So when you talk about opportunity, Division I opportunity, I know Dan alluded to the progression of student athlete to balance to athlete student. It's essentially, it's a little bit more of a business at Division I, right? I mean, I'm thinking about it in terms as I talk with managing money and managing resources and managing results and protecting my job. At a Division I institution is a lot more cutthroat. So turnover is potentially higher. The expectation and standard for the student to work is higher because you're being paid. I mean, I know we're not considering these athletes as professional athletes and they're not being compensated, even though the likeness issue has now come up in the NCAA. But it's a job. You're working. And as Dan even alluded to in his experience at Northern Michigan, it's not much different. Division II institutions are usually a little bit more balanced with international students, not quite the Wild West of the NAIA. That's another organization outside of the NCAA with a lot less restrictions and legislative bodies to provide oversight, so that there's a little bit more parity that doesn't exist. It's really who's got the money and who's willing to go do things. But I just think Division III is such an incredible experience because it is, it's really holistic. So you can have that soccer experience. And Dan said late February, and it's really the third week of March, because we get an 18-week cumulative season, and we usually use 10 or 11 of those weeks in the fall, which leaves us sometimes 12 if it's a good season, which leaves us maybe 6 weeks or 7 weeks. We now have 16 practice opportunities, no competitions in the MIAC. Other Division III conferences outside of the MIAC do have one competition date where they can play 2 opponents within the same time frame, kind of jamboree style. So we have to be pretty thoughtful about our time. If we have 4 training sessions a week, because that's the maximum allotment that we are allowed at Division III, because of that balance on the academic elements, we have about a 4-week season, 4 or 5 week spring season, and that's it. Now, something to consider though is academically, our students, our soccer team does better. This year is actually an anomaly at Augsburg, but historically, it's better in the fall when you're in season than when you're out of season, because you're forced to prioritize your time effectively. And I think I always say that it's time prioritization, not time management, because really it's about choices. What do you choose to do? Do you choose to play, FIFA the entire day until the papers due at the last minute? Or do you choose to do all of the things you need to do proactively because you have training, you have a lift, you have a run, have the different things. So I don't know. I mean, everyone has a different taste of it. I think in this club, the people, as I look into the audience here, the attendees that are in this arena, we're not talking about anybody who is in the Division II or Division I level or range of soccer right now. This is, and I'm sorry if I'm the bearer of bad news. It's just a reality. There is a college soccer opportunity available for everyone, and that includes junior college associations, like the DCTCs of the world and some of those other institutions. So there's a lot out there. But I just think for the audience, the most relevant discussion is probably Division III or junior college, community college soccer.
Yeah. Adam, I'm curious, when you were thinking about not playing NCAA college soccer, were you looking at any club soccer options? Did you think about maybe I'll just play intramural?
Yeah, so that was definitely something that I was considering. I was, going back and forth. I was playing at a very high level at my club. I went from being in Minnesota, 1,200, in the state, in the nation versus, going up to California, you start to play teams that are ranked, top 50 in the nation. And so I was starting to really question it. And I'm a passionate person, so could a person like me exist in an intramural soccer game and still have friends at the end of the match? Probably not. So I was more thinking what aligns with, my goals the best, and what aligns, because I knew not to kid myself. I wasn't going to go pro by any means. And so to devote so much of my time at a D1 program, for it to end in 4 years didn't make sense to me. So I specifically was drawn to D3 because, you still have to be there when they tell you to be there, but I have a lot of choices with how I fill my time. And so I think that it's truly, truly the best balance between, how things were. Soccer, especially with just the way the season lines up. For me, it was just, I knew that I wasn't a D1 kid, and I knew that I couldn't give up, the sport I liked with how much time I gave up, growing up, to just throw it all away the moment I got to college.
Thanks, Adam. Greg and now Adam have brought up like how you're spending your time elsewhere, and especially academics. Dan, Garrett, can you speak to how you balance school and soccer, and what was the difference between the fall in season and the spring off season? Garrett, go ahead first.
Sure. Yeah, so during season, it's definitely a different battle. I mean, you're physically tired, you're mentally tired. But again, as Greg alluded to, it's a lot of scheduling, which can actually benefit you in the long run, or during that time. And then spring season, comes with its other challenges. Now you don't have that schedule. You're a little more free to get into some of those extracurriculars, whether that's in school or maybe it's just spending time with friends, family, catching up in those areas of your life. So every season, every opportunity it's a little different. There's going to be those challenges. I chose to spend some of my extracurriculars in helping the student body president get nominated. So that was kind of one thing that I worked on in that spring season, and I've been doing that for about 3 years now, which I really enjoy. And then like other things, getting into different sports, maybe spending more time with friends and family. So.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of used, especially in season, I kind of used homework as like a getaway. Be like, because I had a pretty heavy responsibility within the team as being one of its senior laden leaders, and I would sometimes go home or go to the library, put myself in a room, do my own homework, and that was the time for almost me to think, but like also think strategically still and still do something worth my time rather than just going home. So me being productive is actually more of a getaway for me doing nothing, believe it or not. I think that's kind of how I work. I know all people don't work that way, but I know if I was able to stay on top of my things, I would be able to help other people stay on top of theirs. So I kind of prioritize my own time as a selfless act to make sure the teammates on our team can stay on top of their own homework. So we as a team don't fall below the line we're supposed to fall, even though sometimes it will happen. I try to position myself into a position where I can help others and not just myself. So that's kind of how I always think, which is hard, but it's good if you can think that way. So I can challenge you guys to do that too.
Yeah, often I see recruits and parents in particular wondering how players will balance their schoolwork and their soccer. And I think Dan said it well, that you've got this network of a team who's there to support you. And often players will tutor each other, mentor each other, and you're all on the same soccer schedule. So you all know that you have specific windows when you have to get that homework done. And it's really nice to have teammates who will reinforce for you, hey, you really need to finish that project. Get your books out on the van ride to the game or home from the game.
And I think it's
Go ahead,
important.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's important to make that effort to keep the connection with your teammates when you're not in season. That's part of the battle is that chemistry between players. And a lot of times you can kind of think, oh, I got free time now. Spend it doing things I like. But really, you need to put the effort in to keep those relationships going and make sure that everyone feels a part of the team.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Let's pivot to what does the off season look like? You talked about keeping the connection between players. What is mandatory for you to show up at? What is voluntary? Where a coach, when are coaches there? When are coaches not there? Let's start with Adam, and then we'll go Dan and Garrett.
Yeah, so off season at the D3 level is different because you're not really allowed to see your coach in a practice setting. So if I pass by my coach in randomly in the hall or something, I can say hi. But if we are meeting as a team together and we are doing some sort of activity, whether it's lifting or soccer or futsal or anything like that, the coach cannot be there. Outside of the regular practice times that you do in the spring. So if we're talking just off season, it's kind of just the winter time before the snow melts and you're really able to go outside. And so what that means is every coach is different. For me, it was twice a week. You're up 6:30 in the morning, mandatory lift Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then you'll have, as a team, you decide how many times a week do you want to play futsal. And so there's a lot more power given into the leaders of the team at D3 than at any other level. And so when you look at people like me and Dan and Garrett, when we're thinking, okay, when do we want to get together as a team and play soccer, we're deciding that. So if we know everybody is not going to be, in class at a certain time, we're playing futsal during that time. There's blanket expectations for everybody. Sundays, we play futsal. That's how things work. And so you see a lot of the responsibility shift from the coach into you and the team. And that's when you see stuff like culture come up. But that's what I have. I'll let someone else speak more.
Yeah, so I think for me, I've had a different spring season. I alluded to the first one, my freshman year, how that was pretty intense, 6 times a week and pretty lengthy with games, travel, lifts, and the whole shebang. My first year at Augsburg, second collegiate year, I was very sick, so I didn't even participate for half of it. I was like a walking ghost, so that was a whole story in itself. And then my second year at Augsburg, I was studying abroad in Spain, so imagine doing that at the Division I or Division II level. Probably not able to do that. So I was able to enrich myself in a way that was only possible at the Division III level, maybe Division II. That's arguable yet again. And then my last year, obviously, I'm a senior, so we don't have a spring season. So I had a very different track, but I think I can speak still to ways that I had opportunities to not just get better at soccer. And value for me is seeing the world and seeing different cultures and seeing my family as much as I can that lives in Europe. And I was able to do that, see my grandparents in different countries, see my grandparents and family in Sweden, make more connections overseas because I want to go back once all this stuff blows over. But you don't get the opportunity, like Adam said, you get more freedom at the Division III level to do what you want to do, but do even more. So I think like off-field activities or out-of-country activities. So I don't have much on the soccer piece. So hopefully Garrett can add more from the Augsburg perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to say my experience has only been D3, and I've been lucky enough to play all 4 years. So, really right after the season, it's your winter season starts. So for us, it was 3 days a week, 6 a.m. lifts, and then you had some men's league and then a couple weeks futsal. Then spring rolls around and you have your, 14 sessions or so? Greg will know. 16 sessions. And then, that's, you sprinkle in some lifts beyond that. And then when it comes to summer, it's kind of, it's a free for all. Everyone goes home. Everyone does their own thing. So that's kind of where another challenge, enters the play. You lose a little bit of that communication just because of location. And I think, for advice for someone maybe looking to play somewhere, or maybe they've already committed to a place, I would message the captain and get into that group chat. So one thing that we did this summer, I think Dan and I spent a couple days a week on the Augsburg field because it's open during the summer. And we would just invite guys over. We'd play, 8 o'clock till 12 o'clock, something like that in the morning, when everyone's free or when everyone's not working. So I think, a piece of advice for that off season, that summer season, is, get into that group chat and make sure you can find time to play with some of your teammates.
Thanks. Greg, anything to add there about the off season, whether the spring or summer?
No, I think we want to probably turn it, into this recruiting process a little bit more. I mean, those guys did a good job of laying out what it looks like.
Yeah, awesome. So let's jump into the timeline of the recruiting process. Can you speak to when you started looking into schools, and then when did you actually end up verbally committing? Let's start with Dan and then go to Garrett and end with Adam.
So I actually started looking at schools when I was a freshman. I didn't really make too many advancements in contacts until I was a sophomore because it's not like basketball where they start signing kids when they're 13 years old. It's a little different. So I made contacts when I was a sophomore because I would do ID camps across the country targeted towards schools that I was interested in. And I also realized that I wanted to challenge myself and go out of state. So that was looking at schools in Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Washington. Actually, I wanted to go out to Seattle maybe. So there are other schools that I was looking at. So I made a priority of where I wanted to look. Got in contact with schools, researched schools. My sophomore year, emailed, did ID camps, did tournaments out of state, out of the city, the whole thing. And then my senior year fall season, that was after my club season, is when I kind of got to narrow things down to a certain number of schools that I had already visited, or I just was only interested in. I think I got down to like 4 or 5. And then since I committed to a Division II school, I did a national letter of intent signing in February. So I was all done by February, but I didn't make my decision until the end of January because I was still weighing my options and doing certain winter ID camps at schools or waiting for certain phone calls to be over. Because, I mean, in season, a lot of the coaches are pretty busy too, so you might not be able to find the time. So I think that's kind of why mine got so prolonged into December and January and into February. So.
Yeah, for me, I started looking into schools my junior year. I was actually uncertain if I even wanted to go to college, but I knew soccer would kind of be my gateway. So it was probably late junior, summer year when I was in high school. I started making these visits. I started contacting coaches. And then my senior season, that's when Greg came to watch me play. And after that, I think I went to a couple of Augsburg games and watched them play, met with the guys, and then I had my decision by, I think it was December or January. I had committed.
For me, shortly after I had moved, I had the opportunity in December to go to Disney Cup, which is just a big tournament in Florida where a ton of coaches go. And by some random luck, there was a coach from Hamlin who was going to be there. And so I just shot him an email, and then, he said, "Oh, okay, I'm going to be able to see you." And then he basically just called me, and, from that minute on, 4-minute conversation translates to a year later, or 9 months later, I visit the school, and then 3 months later, I'm making choices on whether or not I want to commit. And so I was in contact with my coach from December, and then a whole year, and I committed in February. So during that time, I'm still talking to other coaches. I'm still figuring stuff out, but coaches are going to keep track of who you are. If you walk into any coach's office, you're going to see a list of 20 names on the whiteboard. And that's because they keep track of who you are as you get older. And so, be buckled in. You can create really, really strong relationships. And I think that's what, helped me make my decision.
I'll cut to the nuts and bolts of that discussion a little bit, just from my perspective. I mean, I have a graduate assistant who does all of the recruiting work, identifying and chasing down and texting back and forth in the messaging, because I just, in my 4 children world, don't have time or interest in hunting down 16, 17-year-olds anymore. But the reality is that I'll start watching you, or we will really start paying close attention to you this summer, after your junior year. So spring of your junior year, summer junior year, heading into your senior season. That's kind of when we're really going to turn it up a little bit, just because there's so much physical maturation, psychosocial maturation that takes place, academic changes and shifts. And we'll get to Mark's question about some of the financial benefits or consequences, however you want to look at it, when it comes to going to school and being a good student. But we just don't put a lot of stock in early recruiting. Now, that's different for different genders in our sport, and it's different in different sports, although the NCAA has done a good job of curbing some of the outrageousness of what's been happening in the meantime. So for us, spring of your junior year into your senior year, we'd like to have things wrapped up by the new year, by January at the latest, but we understand the realities are different for everyone, and we have to be understanding and mindful of each person's unique circumstances, both financial, familial, whatever else might be going on. But it is not too late if you're a senior. To Jose and your question, it's not. So we have a player, actually, I just got one today. So what is it now? What is it? I don't even know what day it is today. No, none of us do in this.
April
17th.
I don't have any idea. But I just got one. And our best player, the conference player of the year in the MIC, Lionel Vang, last year was the best player in the country. He was playing down in Phoenix, and he's going to be on a USL contract here. He didn't come to us until like August 7th or 8th, and we started on August 16th. So the door is always open, depending on how good you are.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I want to get to Mark's question now. How realistic are scholarships or help with tuition? He's worried about student debt now that his favorite presidential candidate is not in the race.
You had me laugh with that one for sure.
Holger, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, so I mean, the reality is, you guys right now, the young men that are in this, or the parents can pass this on to their sons, you are getting paid to go to school right now. That is your form of scholarship. The better you do academically right now in your current high school circumstance is going to pave the way for opportunities moving forward. Even at the Division I or Division II, where again, we talked about 9.9 being the maximum scholarship amount. So there's a limited amounts of resources and funding anyway. If I'm a good manager of that money and I can give you 20% of one at 9.9 because you got merit aid at 60% of your tuition, wait for, and the average rate of discount is about 50% in the MIAC, at least in Minnesota. And I think the University of Minnesota probably averaged around $24,000. So we're right in line with the top end state schools. It's different from MSU, Mankato, but these are non-soccer options for you, including the University of Minnesota, which has a club option only. So you want to get money, you want to do really well. If you're a 4.0 student, you're going to get a lot more money than if you're a 3.0 student. If you're a 2.5 student or in that, you're in trouble. You're going to be paying more. Depending your personal circumstances, and then the way that the FAFSA, the Free Application for Financial Student Aid, comes out and determines what resources you can and cannot pay based on that. But most institutions aren't going to fulfill your need unless they believe that you can be successful and you improve their academic profile. So go to school, do the best you can do with your grades. That is your best ticket to get the most money at any institution. And there are guys coming to Augsburg. There's one coming next year. He is paying out of pocket $1,500 per year. He does have federal loans, Stafford loans, so they're subsidized at $5,500 a year, but he has to pay $1,500 in cash. So $6,000 cash, $22,000 in loans. That is an unbelievable deal to be able to have a private liberal arts education and experience our soccer program. I would do that 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's often a misconception that there's a lot more a lot more athletic money at Division I and Division II schools than there actually is. And I think it's important to note that those athletic scholarships are often not full scholarships. They're often divided up. So I played Division I college soccer, but my scholarship was books. It was about $500 a semester. So if I had gone to a Division III school that gave me a lot of academic aid, it would have been a bigger financial aid package for me in general. So it's not unreasonable or rare to expect that you could get a better financial deal at a D3 school through that academic money, through what you're earning right now through your grades, than would be likely through an athletic scholarship at, say, a D2 program. Dan, anything to add to that since you've had experience at those different levels?
No, just a quick point. I think my dad always said, because I knew I was looking at schools across all divisions, he said, you're probably going to get a scholarship worth more in academics than you will athletics. So we need to make sure your grades are good. I actually went to a school who gave out not very good academic scholarships compared to other schools, just because their tuition is actually already lower and percentages. But the truth in the statement my dad made is still completely relevant. Like, you're going to go farther with academic aid than you are athletic aid, because if you tear an ACL, you lose your athletic aid, but you don't lose your academic aid. So always make sure to continue being a good student. I'll echo Greg's comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, I want to throw in our current sort of crazy moment that we're in as a world. Greg, how do you see COVID-19 influencing recruiting from a coach's perspective?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that this can go. I mean, as of today, we're moving forward as if we're going to have a fall season, whenever that might start. And if that's modified, so be it. But that still means that we're keeping up with our incoming class and staying true to that. I spoke to our admissions office yesterday for about 20 minutes to give them some feedback on what I would do as a good steward and as a good human being who has children. Because if it does turn our fall experience and that we don't have a season, or it's some sort of hybrid online in-person course, but that in-person portion doesn't come until, late October, November. And so essentially we don't have a season. The advice I'm going to be giving our recruited players is to take at least a leap semester so that they are able to work and do whatever they need to do until January when we open things up again, hopefully. Again, I'm just forecasting different options and opportunities. Come in then, and then you would actually finish after the fall semester of what would be your 5th year, 4.5 year. The problem that creates is that our 2021 class is now getting pinched together with our 2020s. So it's or if it's an entire leap year, sorry, that would be the real problem, right? But either way, you're going to have, if I have 8 guys or 9 guys coming in this year, then my 2021s are going to get pinched. It can't be that many because we're not going to lose that many. So it's posing some questions for us strategically about how we want to lay out our programs and what we want to do. I think the majority of people at the University of Wisconsin stepped up, and I thought it was an outstanding thing to say, no, we're not actually going to honor these scholarships and this eligibility. We're going to, because financially that is irresponsible for institutions who are really, really up against it in this time. Man, I mean, it's hard because there are no games for us to go watch. There's no club soccer right now. The prospect of no high school soccer. In addition to that, the development academy just collapsed and folded and is done now, no longer exists on the men or boys or girls side. So the opportunities for kids to be seen and be known is going to be harder. It's going to be hard. You guys are in a tough go, especially the 2021s. The 2020s, you should have some sort of idea, and at least you'll have a plan that's manageable moving forward. But the 2021, so the current juniors, I mean, I feel for you. But you're going to have to be as proactive as you can be when you can be. And right now it's really about utilizing the resources you have at your hands, your club coaches, your high school coaches, and helping them and asking them to work out on your behalf. Because if somebody reaches out to me that I trust and tells me that they've got a player that I would be interested in, and here's why, then that player is going to go on the board that Adam talked about. And we're going to pay attention and see him and get to know him at some point in time. And if the fit is right, we're still going to make it happen. Again, everyone, all the moving pieces have to fall into place there. But there's no cherry coating it or sugar coating it. This is a disaster. I mean, it's really been challenging for all of us for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. I want to emphasize one word that Greg said, and that's being proactive. So often I think players imagine that coaches are going to see them and reach out to them. And I really want to emphasize that it's important for players to be proactive and reach out to coaches. So I want to pivot back to our younger players, our recent graduates. And how did you first get connected with college coaches? Did they contact you, or were you more likely to be the one who contacted them? And if you were contacting coaches, what did that first contact look like for you? Let's start with Dan and then go to Adam and then end with Garrett.
Yeah, so I usually had to do the contacting. I mean, for being not from the cities and not a very well-connected area for soccer, Minnesota to begin with, you don't have 1 or 2 divisions. We just have Division III. So I always made sure to make contact and use the contacts that I had already at the collegiate level to help me connect to other coaches in that sense. But I always made sure that when I connected with coaches, it would be through email first, and I always made an important effort to make my subject line something attractive. I wouldn't leave that blank, and I wouldn't say recruit or something. I would say something that stuck out. So something that stuck out for me is that I'm huge. So I'm going to put my height down and say I'm a center back, I'm 6'5", and then maybe something else that says class of 2020 or something. So I made myself known already in the subject line, because if a coach looks at that and said, oh, wow, I didn't know I was recruiting football, but if he looks at that, it's going to stick out and he's going to want to read it. He's going to want to get to know me more. So I made an effort to use what I had, put it in the subject line, make myself attractive and well-known to the other coaches, and be like, hey, this guy's like, he wants us to know more about him. And then I made sure I leave all my information, all contact they can use. I made it easy for the coaches so they didn't have to go and find things on their own. But I would always follow up with emails. If I didn't hear back, I'd give them a couple days, always follow up if they did. I'd say, hey, I'm open for a chat over the phone or whatever it is. I would always be available for that, because I think that's another good way to know a coach without actually meeting with them, understanding conversation, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes. But I think it's important, if you do reach out, you don't just reach out blanketly and say soccer recruits or something. Do something that makes yourself stick out. Be unique. Pick something up that about yourself, or an accolade that you have, or an individual accomplishment, and put that in the subject line. Be like, hey, do something to grab your attention. I think that's really important.
For me, I was lucky to be surrounded by a crazy amount of tournaments. And so where I was playing, I had a practically a ritual. It was type in the name of the tournament that I'm going to, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to have a list of every single college coach so every college that's going to be there, it's going to have a big long list. And so I can go in and I copy and paste the name into Google, and I go in and I find their athletic page. I find the coach's name in their email, and my email template is already set up. So I have all the things that Dan was talking about. So at the time I was playing for the 20th ranked team in the nation for club. So you best believe that's one of the first things I'm mentioning, And so I would do that, and I'd include my graphic, and I'd record the name of the club, the name of the college that I had, that I sent out the email to. And I'd do that about 20 times. So I was probably emailing 20 to 30 coaches every single tournament I was going to. So I'm casting a really, really large net. In hindsight, probably not the best plan to just be so impersonal with everything that I was doing. But it can be an interesting process for sure. But I think starting with an email template is crucial. Getting out there. I mean, I was trying to get coaches to come see me play to get my foot in the door. And I think that it can be a better and more reasonable approach to just try and get out there and talk with the coach, and, maybe try and get him on the phone instead of only relying on having them see you in person. Because if they're getting 30 emails a day, that's 30 different kids who are asking them to come see them in person. Your odds of, him coming out and seeing you are slim. So I think in that sense, I wasn't taking the right approach, but it's definitely possible to, get out there and just not exactly pester, but just be a familiar, name in the inbox.
Nice. Yeah, I think my experience is a little different. I'm a goalie, so as you know, we're kind of a hot commodity around the the soccer realm. So no, I'd say piece of advice I'd use is use your high school coach. You can use your club coach as well. I think a high school coach is a little different because they kind of know you, a little deeper. They know your academics. They can keep track of all that. So they can really help you make that connection to a college level. And, as Holker's experience, he's been a high school coach as well. So, he knows the ropes there. And then, yeah, it was an email. I think I had a couple conversations with Jeremy Handler, some real slow, not too intense conversations, if you know what I mean. And just keeping that connection, with the assistant coaches, with the head coach. You'll probably be talking to a grad assistant now, so just make sure you're stern. Make sure you know your schedule. Send them times you can talk. I'd say that's a really important thing, is just keep your schedule tight and make sure you're upfront. Say, hey, let's have a phone call at this time, and I'll see you there. So, keep it quick.
Thanks, G. Yeah, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
So you said earlier, if you get an email from a recruiting, software system, you're just going to throw it away. As a coach, what makes you open an email, and what makes you actually follow up with a player?
That's a good question. I think maybe this will tie into what I was going to say about G, and that was he was suggesting utilizing your high school coach, somebody who really understands and knows your personality. Well, I think that's unique to everyone's situation and circumstance, right? Their club coaches might spend more time and know them. One of the difficult things for parents, I think, is to gauge and understand which of the two is a better advocate for my son. That's always trying. I think this community is pretty fortunate because Jen is here and I am here, and we have experience in all of these levels. And I'm a little bit like mafia connected to soccer in this community and in this country. So there aren't too many people that there's at least one degree of separation and I'm not connected to them. So utilize us for those that are BVU kids and even others who are not and are still comfortable reaching. Utilize us. We're here to help you and help you understand that. Now, back to the question about what in an email am I going to read that's going to tell me I'm interested in this person? It must talk about why you're writing me. Why are you interested in Augsburg? Why are you interested in my soccer program? Because if you just say, dear coach, here's where I play, here's what I'm doing, hope I come see you, whatever it might be. There's just that, there's variety within the templates, and Adam did a good job of talking about adjusting his templates and personalizing it, even though he was casting a large net, as he said. And he agrees now in hindsight that's probably not the best idea. I would agree with that. It's probably not the best idea. Do your homework proactively. Again, there's that word. Proactively do the work. What are the types of institutions you want to be at? And there's a lot of different questions you can ask yourself, and we will provide plenty of resources for you and the people in our club to be able to understand what kind of questions you should even be asking. So you figure out large school, small scale, urban, rural, large class, all the different elements and things that come in play. That will at least get you, your pyramid, your funnel will start to get a little bit tighter. And then when you get to a smaller range, you certainly, if soccer is what you want to do, what are the institutions that fit in that range of that survey, really? So if you're writing me and you're specific about dear Coach Holker or Greg or whatever, I've really been impressed with what's going on at Augsburg the last few years. I mean, you guys have been in the final this many times, the NCAA tournament this many times, you won it this many times. This player was a player of the year, and I know he did a little bit, but this is, you want to make me feel good, right, about the work we've done, because then I'm going to feel good about the investment that you've put in. In addition to that, you've got to connect something to the institution. And Dan brought this up earlier. If you tear your ACL or your career's over, you're still going to be a student at that university or that college. So if you aren't a good fit overall, that's not going to work. So on the front end, again, what about the institution? I love being in the city. I want to be in the city. I embrace diversity and inclusion. Okay, you say those things to me, you've done homework on my soccer program, I'm probably going to pick up the phone and I'm going to find out more about you. So I'll call your high school coach or your club coach and coaches, or the director at the club that you're in, or my first, second, third degree of separation contact, whatever it might be. And we'll do the homework first. Then I'll reach out to you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
I did mention this, but more often than not, your best resource is going to be your coach. And so my coaches would always tell me, you need to CC me on every email. And so my first college coach I had was the Dominguez Hills. He was coaching D2. And so he knew a lot of coaches. And then next thing, I have the UCLA coach, one of the assistant coaches who's my main club coach. So I'm going to mention his name in my email. I'm going to let people know, hello, hi, this is my coach. It's going to put you in a different group than the rest of the people, like knowing people genuinely helps. If Dan's, for some reason coaching older kids, Dan's not even a year out of the MIAC. I would say he's got 4 years before a lot of the coaches forget who he is. And so if, you're a U17 kid and Dan Hedstrom, you're going to find other coaches in the MIAC who are going to know who that name is. And so there's a lot of even faces just that you see right here that can help you get into a lot of doors. So definitely use, the coaches to their fullest advantage anytime you can.
Yeah, your BVU coaches care about you. Put them on the email, put their contact information on the email, call them, say, what should I do next? Talk about someone my coaches will know. If Adam King is your coach right now and you're interested in MIAC school, have Adam give that coach a call. It will really help. Personal connections will really, really, really help. I just want to throw in a few things in emails that are big turnoffs for me when I'm reading them. If you say at Augsburg, hey, I'm really interested in studying nursing. Well, we don't have a nursing program. I'm not going to follow up. If you get my name wrong, If there's a lot of spelling or grammar errors in the email, it's going to make me feel like you didn't put in a lot of time or care or attention. So I think it's really important to proofread. It's really important to know what those turnoffs could be too. Greg, do you have any big turnoffs that bother you about emails?
Yeah, you just nailed them. And I'm actually, as you say this, I'm thinking about the 2 I deleted today. So I'm going to find an example real quick and pull it up for you. So go ahead and keep moving forward.
Okay, so as Greg finds that example, I want to jump to our last question. And that is, for the recent graduates, were you glad that you played college soccer? And if so, why? Like, what did it change about you? What new skills are you taking home from it? How has it impacted you as a person? Let's start with Garrett, go to Dan, and end with Adam. And at any moment, Greg, if you find that email, just jump in.
Sure. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm very thankful I was able to play all 4 years and have such a great team. And also, a great coach, great coaching staff, all the above. So just some takeaways, I think, is just, I kind of learned how to hold myself accountable. You come in as a freshman, you're very naive. You don't really know what to expect. You kind of think the world owes you, but by the time you leave, you kind of are now totally doing a 180 on your mindset. At least in my case, I can kind of see that all the work I put in and all the effort, it was a reflection of what I got out of it. So, you put in 100%, your experience may not, or, the results may not show 100%, you might not win the championship, but at the same time, you're going to be able to reflect and learn all those things that you've done. So, I think, I went in there expecting to learn a lot and work with a team and be a team player. And I think that's exactly what I got out of it. So that is my experience.
All right. Yeah. So I think, like I said, I've had a different experience with 2 schools, but I would absolutely do it all over again with the 2 schools, I think, because you could see a stark contrast between the 2. But the first year obviously challenged me to go out of my way to a different state, different time zone, nonetheless, to play in a different division, meet all sorts of different people. I'm still friends with a lot of them. Actually, some of them come to Augsburg. I still maintain friendships with them. And there's a lot of other people who've gone into different schools, like play at Michigan State now or play at Montana State. A lot of us are kind of dispersed. I actually have a couple friends here that live in Chicago with my parents, or not with my parents, but I'm with my parents right now in Chicago. So I'll see them hopefully eventually. But it's really cool to see all the different friendships you make that honestly are a life-lasting friendship. It's really a special bond because you're with them all the time. Through soccer, you might have the same class as them, but you just spend so much time with them. I think the second thing why I enjoyed college soccer so much was just because it's prepared me for the next step in my life in ways that I couldn't really fathom or understand going into college. I mean, I'm getting job interview questions right now from people who are like, can you tell me about a time you've been in a team setting? And I'm like the last 4 years of my life, I've been in a team setting. So without it even me knowing, I've been prepared for job interviews or even in a professional environment, because you're going to learn more in a college soccer team locker room than you are sitting in a classroom. You can only take theory or material so far from real life experience, and you surprisingly do a lot more in a real team professional setting, like a locker room, than face to face with people, meetings. Facing challenges in games, academics as well. It prepares you so much more than just going and not doing it. It's an enriching experience that not many people get to experience, and those that do, I fully believe are set apart in a different way than other people that don't get to do it. So I would do it 10 times over again, same pathway. I'd go to any other school. I don't know. It's a great experience, and I think Augsburg did an awesome job of doing it. But I strongly recommend it because it's a great experience in itself.
Yeah, life is hard enough, and then the idea of, leaving your family and a lot of your friends and going out into an entirely new environment where you're surrounded by other people who have also no clue what's going on, you can't put it's hard to put a value on, just how valuable it is to like be able to, have those people day in and day out that really care for you. And I think that, I'm starting to realize that you're not going to be surrounded by people who genuinely want to see you grow as a person and get better as, just being a human. And for 4 years, I had, a mentor that came, with a title as a coach. Also, you have upperclassmen who, are also becoming your mentors. In terms of, everything, it's completely changed who I am as a person. It's helped me, dissolve parts of my personality and my ego that, looking back, it's just so weird to think about who I was as a freshman versus the person I am today. It's absolutely different, and I would not be anywhere near the same person I am today without, D3 college sports.
Thanks, Adam. Greg, so will you speak on the email you just found, and will you end by saying why you think college soccer is a good experience for young men in college, student athletes?
Sure. The email, it turned out it was a transfer. I thought it was a first-year student, but that's how little attention I pay to anything like that. And in the email, he talked about pursuing his degree in nursing, of which we don't. And then he wanted to become my graduate assistant the following year. So he's ambitious, but there's a lot of them that come through like that, and they're just deleted. So I really don't even think about the core of it, just as an example. Now, why soccer? It's going to shape who you are. It will shape who you are as a human being and who you become. And I know these guys have talked about the experiences under the tutelage of the mentors that they've worked with and the support of the teammates that they have a chance to embrace and learn about so intimately. But the challenges that you're going to face mimic life. Like, it's not easy. You will run into moments where you don't feel good about yourself, and you will question your self-confidence. And you have to find a way to overcome that adversity and get out of it. And your parents aren't going to be there to move anything out of the way for you. No one's going to be there to move anything out of the way for you. You have to do it on your own. And it's one of the greatest experiences because it's done out of love and for your own growth and development. And that's the intent of many, many, many coaches, is to make you the best version of yourself that you can be, or make you the best version of yourself. And I think that challenge in itself, as you rise from a naive state as a freshman to an awakened state, typically as a sophomore, to having some ownership, Adam's smirking, he's heard this, right? To urgency when it's all over. And your coach, Al Morecki, learned that from Andy Coots, who was his coach at Hamlin.
Yeah, legends.
So that commentary I took from Andy about 15 years ago as well, and I thought it was really real. And that process can't be skipped. And it's unique and different because that process as a student just doesn't exist the way it exists as a student athlete. And so I just think that the opportunity to be able to compete at this level is going to, well, it's going to open doors for you for sure, but it's really going to open your own door. That's the most important one.
What a great note to end on, opening your own door to learning more about yourself and the world. Thank you for joining us today. We've run a few minutes over, so we're going to be respectful of your time and wrap up here. All BU 15 plus teams will get some PDF resources about the college soccer recruiting process, and all attendees of this webinar will get those as well. So thank you for tuning in. If you want to watch it back, it will be on our YouTube page. And if you have questions as we go, reach out to your BVU coach. They want to help you. Reach out to anybody on this panel. We really want to help, and we really do care. Adam, you can see Adam just dropped his phone number in the chat.
Jose's he was in here earlier, but he's been texting me a lot about this stuff, and he can attest. A lot of us are quick responders. We're on our phones a lot, so we love to help. Please reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here for you. So would love to hear from you as this stay-at-home period goes, and certainly once we can see you in person again. Greg just put his email in the chat, so all of us are more than happy to help. I'll throw my email in as well, and then we'll close out the meeting. Thanks again. Thank you so much for being here.
Guys. Have a great night, guys.
See ya.
See you later.